Yes, it's Tarryl Clark who's running for against Michele Bachmann in the 6th Congressional District. When one of the candidates, I can't remember who it was running through all of the congressional districts that are are competitive this year in Minnesota, and they got to the 6th. There was a huge round of applause. I suspect that's partly because you're running, but also partly because of who you're running against, Michele Bachmann.
And it is the most competitive. She only got 46% of the vote last time. El Tinklenberg only lost by 3%. And we're building the kind of campaign that's going to be needed. And let's face it, Washington still isn't working for Minnesotans, and neither is Congresswoman Bachmann.
Because most of the time Congresswoman Bachmann is on Fox News as opposed to back in her district usually.
That's right. You know, there's nothing wrong with deciding to be on shows, but when you're choosing to do that instead of voting, and it doesn't actually create one job, it doesn't help put food on the table for families, help keep somebody staying at home, or save a farm.
So, some obvious questions here, but what are the real issues in this race?
You know, the real issues are the things that affect all of us. It's whether or not a small business or a senior or a family can afford health care. It's whether or not a student can afford to go to college. Can somebody actually afford to retire? You know, recently she said that Americans need to be weaned off Social Security and Medicare, and that fits with what she said in the past about privatizing Social Security. Well, it's our hard-earned dollars. It's not her dollars. So, you know, you think about it, it's bread and butter issues. It's things like infrastructure and transportation, about creating good jobs. But all the while, instead of helping sit down, figure things out, she's been running around trying to stir up discontent and frustration and fear.
We pay attention to Michele Bachmann mostly because when we put her videos up, or videos of her, we get lots of people to watch them. But she'll
still be on Fox News after I defeat her, so I'm sure you'll have plenty of material.
But the point being is that so much of what she says is inflammatory.
That's right.
And it is, some of it is factually incorrect, as we often
find.
find.
She knows what she's doing. She's a smart woman. So I'd say she's artful and a bit crafty, and it's appears to be intended to stir up discontent. But we know what's really important to people, and you know, I don't believe in bearing false witness, as the Bible says. You know, you need to go ahead and be straight up with people.
Because the issue that she brings up so often is the underlying issue is that government is bad, that government needs to be small, that government is your enemy. And that's a message that's really been pounded away by the Republican Party here since the Reagan administration. I think you agree that that's not true. How do you counter that message?
Well, first of all, they like bringing out Abraham Lincoln and Teddy Roosevelt every time they can, because they know that's who's popular. And Teddy Roosevelt was so right. He said, you know, the government is us. It's you and me. It's not something else. It's about how do we choose to pool our resources. What do we want? And if you think about what Michele Bachmann's agenda is, it would be no health care that's affected by the government. It would mean that Wall Street would be doing well. It would mean that big insurance companies would be doing well. She's not for public education. You know, you go through a whole lot of things, and it's a pretty scary future. So the sound bites might appeal to some people, but it's not really what Minnesotans are about. We know dang well that if our kids have a good education, they're going to get a good job and be competitive globally. That if we're a business, we need to bring down healthcare costs. If we worked hard our whole lives, we deserve to be able to retire.
Michele Bachmann voted against the health care bill. Would you have been on the other side of that vote?
You know, this bill was by far from perfect, but what we've learned in Minnesota is that you got to work on things one step at a time. And there's a lot of good things in this bill. Finally getting rid of discrimination by health insurance companies, making it so that the donut hole for seniors and Medicare Part D and insurance prescription drugs, that's gone. That young adults who can't get insurance for their jobs can stay on their parents' insurance for a bit. And then we expand access for millions and millions of Americans. And that's so important. When my husband Doug and I were newly married, we didn't have family coverage. And when we were pregnant with our first son, we didn't have insurance that would cover our health care costs or my delivery. It was really hard for us to pay for that. They went so far as when they tried to give me oxygen when I was in labor, I said, no, we can't afford that. That's not what it should be in America. You should be able to afford a decent insurance policy. You should be able to bring your kids to the doctor, and if you have a needed emergency, you should be able to deal with it. And frankly, it shouldn't be about emergency rooms in the hospital and the rest of us paying for it. So I think it's more than disappointing that she voted against it. What's worse, though, is she never offered one single solution. When our president went to go meet with the House Republicans, she was off in California again saying the president won't work with us. Well, hello, she should have been in Washington working with the president.
Let's switch back here to Minnesota for a moment, and on the same topic, sort of health care. General assistance medical care facing the compromise that was put together with the governor, and the governor changed the compromise by threatening to veto it, seems to be falling apart. We have rural hospitals opting out. We have Hennepin County now saying they're not going to opt out. Is something going to change that before this session is over?
Well, I think it's been really important that the hospitals have been stepping forward to say this doesn't work, not from a human standpoint, not from a business standpoint. But what we had said to the governor originally was a good bill. He should have signed that. He vetoed it.
Yep.
We were willing to compromise because we thought something was better than nothing. But it's good that the hospitals said, you know what, this won't work, including mine. So let's work together to actually do something that's going to make a difference, you know?
Tarryl Clark, we really appreciate you dropping by here and talking to our audience as they watch what's happening with the governor's race. And we, very glad that you're able to spend a little time with us.
Oh, it's great to be here anytime. You just let me know.
All right, thank you. Tarryl Clark, running against Michele Bachmann in Congressional District 6. Thank you so much.
Thank you.